Tell me that story when you had your first client.
She called up and said there's a company called Egos that's looking for an agency for social media and for making their website. So do you want me to recommend your name? I said, yeah, do that, but what name are you going to recommend? There is none.
You have had the opportunity to deal with a couple of entrepreneurs who eventually led up the Shark Tank series.
We had 3 clients featuring on Shark Tank in the same week.
3?
So yeah.
Wow.
And
as a women entrepreneur, what were the 2 challenges or maybe one challenge that you faced, never anticipated, and it still exists?
the challenges that I faced were mostly internal. I think we as women tend to question ourselves a bit much.
From the 2 lakh seed capital to building a 2 crore agency, how did that span out?
There are a lot of things that go into building a right business, and one thing that I realized in the process was that
you keep mentoring a lot of students and young entrepreneurs
sometimes,
and young fresh minds. What are the key skills that you feel that are still lacking both in their attitude as well as in their portfolios? Welcome to Journeys Unmapped, a place where we go deeper into conversations with our guests, primarily to uncover the untold stories about their career journeys. Today we are here with a second episode of our Founders series, Beyond the Map. In today's episode, I have with me Ms. Neha Gupta. She is the founder of Anagram Digital, an agency she started with just 2 lakh seed capital to building it to a 2 crore company. From landing Shark Tank clients to staying ahead the AI curve, Neha's resilience and leadership is a masterclass of creativity. So if you have ever wondered of launching an agency of your own, this episode is going to be a masterclass for you. So let's welcome Ms. Neha Gupta.
Thank you, Sachin.
I'm so delighted to finally have you here on board. And I would straight away like to jump onto the part where I could know about your story first. So tell me, who is Neha? Because my audience would love to know first, where is Neha coming from? What's her background? How has she decided to what she is today?
Well, there isn't much to it. As far as the professional journey goes, I started my career about 17 years ago. There have been a lot of shifts. There have been a lot of risks in my journey. I started with what's commonly known as Satyapal, but actually the company is called Genesis Luxury. These were the guys who partnered with and brought some of the international brands to India. So whether it's Jimmy Choo, Canali, I'm talking about the brands back then, Jimmy Choo, Canali, Bottega Veneta, Kenzo, Paul Smith, commonly known as the company behind Satyapal, because that was the first brand that they started with. So I was in the marketing and PR team there, and as I like to fondly say, those were the years that I was paid to party. Because in a luxury setup, you're hosting events, you're networking, you're partying. But the worst part was that you're the one hosting the party. So I think that's the worst role to have at a party. But yeah, did that for about 2 years, learned a lot. That's when I saw an opportunity in joining my family business, which is furniture. My dad's been running it for about 40 years now. And I felt that if I'm so good at marketing and if I'm good at what I do, I used to get a lot of praises at work, and Dad was struggling with the marketing side of things, then why don't I join him and explore if there is a vertical that I can build there or if I can scale what we already have at hand. I did that for about 5-6 years, lots of new learnings. I was suddenly in an industry which is completely male-dominated, 0 women. I'm suddenly sitting in an office in Kirti Nagar, a furniture store, and I'm now talking to cut from my luxury background to now sitting and working with laborers and talking to them about why this table ye tedha kyun hai, ya aapne aise nahi banaya. So a huge shift, but it got me to learn so much about how to run a business, what are the operational challenges of actually running your own show, which is coming very handy today. Did that for about 5-6 years, but I think as is the case with most family-run businesses, with kids joining family-run businesses, you start feeling a little stagnated after a point of time.
True that.
I started feeling that with the potential that I have, I could probably do a little more. I was hungry for more. And I think the other thing that was happening on the personal front was that I'd lived with my parents for 30 years now, by then. And if you've lived with your parents for 30 years, you've had enough of them and they've had enough of you. So I decided to move out, not just of the business, but also my parents' house. I'm very glad that my parents were very supportive of that decision. We're a very traditional Marwari business family. So these decisions they're not always appreciated. My parents were very, very supportive. So I moved out and I got an apartment to myself here in Gurgaon. And I also took up a job in this company called Akiva Superfoods, which was my first stint with the startup world, the funded startup companies. This was back in 2018. And again, a complete shift from what I was doing. This was the third shift. And again, lots of new learnings. I had no idea how funded startups work up until then. So there were a lot of new learnings on that front. When I joined, I was the third member to join Akiva. By the time I left as head of marketing, we were 25 people team. 8 of them were reporting into me. There was a whole team of e-commerce and design and branding, and there were different teams and different verticals that we'd built over a period of time that were doing this. Lots of learnings. Lots of challenges. I think that's where I learned how to scale a business from 0 to 1, and again came up with its own challenges and its own journeys. From there on, I moved to this company called Burger Singh. We all know the most well-branded Indian homegrown burger chains to exist. And I was heading marketing not just for Burger Singh, but they were planning to launch a brand back then called Bowl Hub. Very interestingly, inspired from Pornhub. The logo, the personality was exactly like Pornhub. The founders, in fact, very smartly did not tell me about this in any of our interview sessions. And then when I joined, they kept this box in front of me and said, "This is what we're planning to launch," hoping to see if I'll recognize that logo. I didn't, but I think that's a story for another day. But from there on started the journey to completely start a brand called Bowl Hub, which was as naughty as can be. So post Burger Singh, actually while I was at Burger Singh, the pandemic hit, and the biggest tragedy ever to be known, at least in our lifetimes. I lost my job. A lot of people did. I was suddenly now, after some 13 years of working, suddenly sitting at home thinking, what am I supposed to do? Money depleting in bank every month, and I didn't know what to do. And that's when I think started Anagram. I started working on some consulting projects. One project led to another. And before I knew it, I had Anagram fully functional as an agency that offers marketing services, etc. And we're now about 10, 12 people. It's a small boutique agency, but we're a 12 people strong company. We worked with some of the biggest startups in the D2C space. And it's been an interesting journey.
That's wonderful. Let me take back to that time when you actually started the Anagram journey, where you said you started somewhere in the Delta wave, right?
Just before the Delta wave.
Just before the Delta. So when most people are moving back, taking a step back, not thinking about starting anything, you actually took that bold step. What was actually happening in your life, in your mind space, when you actually decided to launch a company, and that too when, as you said, the funds were depleting, you had to think a lot about your finances first. So I just want to know about that first.
Serious lapse of judgment happened, Sachin. But no, jokes apart. There were 3-4 things that were happening. We all had a lot of free time at hand.
True that.
So did I. I was consulting brands. One shift that I saw happening in the industry was that there were a lot of offline marketing-led companies that were now suddenly left with no marketing options, or at least the ones that were known to them. They wanted to move online, but they'd never done it. So the learning had to come in quick. It had to be very agile. And that's where people like me became more important to these companies. And I started taking up consulting projects with companies that were either reaching out to me, or I started reaching out to these companies. And I realized that there's huge potential which is still untapped to some degree. So Absolutely nothing was happening at that time in life. The world had come to a standstill as we know it. Uh, I had suddenly gone back to baking with my mom and helping her try Dalgona coffees. I was back
That was
home.
a trend, right?
Yeah, lots of trends, and we followed everything. We were trying to figure out how to make golgappas at home. I was also on the side doing courses on SEO marketing, on so many other things, Google Ads, how to run different things. I also saw an industry shift around that time, which was companies that were heavily offline marketing reliant were now looking for online marketing sources. Because in the pandemic, offline marketing as we knew it did not exist anymore. Uh, I saw an opportunity there. I felt that my skills that I've acquired, especially in my last two startup jobs, would come in handy here. And suddenly those have become that much more important to companies and businesses. That's where the idea of Anagram came into being. Um, we decided to set this up as an agency that's not just helping businesses grow in terms of story or the idea, but also help them get ROI driven results. That's the idea of Anagram. It's got conceptualized while making Dalgona coffees. And yeah, so far it's been a great journey.
Lovely. So while you were building Anagram, I'm sure you must have got a lot of setback, a lot of no's from the clients. Tell me that story when you had your first client. First, as in before even you thought it would be called as Anagram, or will this practice go on and maybe later I would form an agency. What was that moment when you had your first client, the first interaction?
Well, you're right. The first interaction happened before I even decided to name it Anagram. So when I started toying with the idea, so two, three things happened when I started toying with the idea of starting an agency. I spoke to a lot of people. I've luckily met some very interesting people in my journey through the different companies that I worked with. Have had some great mentors, have had great bosses. So I spoke to all of them, a lot of them. I realized something that my boss at Burger Singh had said, which made so much sense to me. And Kabir, the founder of Burger Singh, I went and I asked him, listen, businesses are shutting down. Uh, Everybody is scaling down their operations. And here I am thinking of starting a business. Do you think I'm being very foolish? I mean, I know I'm being foolish, but am I being super foolish about this? Something he said changed my life. He said, Neha, start it nonetheless. What do you have to lose? Um, in case this fails, you have a pandemic to blame on. Um, the other thing that will happen is if it fails, startups will be more than ready. They'll be lining up to hire you because they're all looking for risk takers. And there's nothing that speaks risk taker more than starting a business right in the middle of a pandemic. So he said, do this. And in case it works out, then you'll have a hell of a story to tell people. And I mean, here I am building that story one day at a time. The first client happened soon after that conversation. I hadn't thought of a name. We got a friend of mine called, an ex-colleague of mine rather. She called up and said there's a company called Egos that's looking for an agency for social media and for making their website. So do you want me to recommend your name? I said, yeah, do that. But what name are you going to recommend? There is none. So she said, you have to send a proposal in the morning. And this is 7 o'clock at night. She said, oh, work it out. I know you'll work it out. And then overnight, I had to think of a name. I called a couple of my friends who were in the creative spaces. I said, yaar, naam sochna hai. And we thought of the name Anagram. The client interactions went well. They asked us to do a pitch within a week. Back then, I had a bunch of freelancers that were there that I used to work off and on with on different projects, but I didn't have a formal team up until then. And I knew that nobody will be able to turn around a pitch within a week. So I said, okay, let me do the pitch myself. So I wrote the story in about a week. There was a small thought that came to my mind. And you know, Egos was actually a very difficult client to begin with because it's an egg. It's a single SKU product and it's a commodity. So what do you do with a commodity on social media? And I was like, wow, I had to start with this. It couldn't have been fashion or shoes or bags, which is so much easier. But one thought passed my mind after I kept her phone down, which was that back then, the highest liked post in the world was a picture of an egg. Do you know
Seriously?
this? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So it was a world record holder. That little picture of a single egg was the world record holder.
Okay.
I thought of starting my pitch with that. So my pitch started saying, do you know that the world record for the highest like post in the world is held by an egg? Well, that got us interested about working with eggos, besides the fact that you're 24 hours fresh and you're higher quality control, etc., etc. And in that process, the pitch just turned out to be something so different from the way other agencies would push. They'd start with TG and audience profile and your positioning and SWOT analysis and all of that. We did none of that. I just wrote a story, the first story that came to my mind, and I went and presented it to the client. Of course, I had a graphic designer, a freelancer who worked with me on the design of that presentation, but that's it. And 1 week later, we had the project.
Wow. So that means, other than the cliche matrices, you actually presented a story which gave you the first client.
Yes, clients are not looking for cliches, right? They already know about their brand.
True that.
I have been on the brand side for the longest time, and I realized that whenever there was a pitch to us, the first 10 slides would usually just talk about your TG and your positioning, and this is who you are, and this is where your competition lies. I already know those things. What I'm waiting for an agency to tell me is an idea that I haven't thought of. So we cut to the chase at Anagram. Every pitch that we've done, starting from Egos, which was a great starting point for me, but up until now, every pitch that we do, every idea that we tell the client is something that they've not thought of. Sometimes it's not even a complicated, big, it's something as simple as the world record being held by a picture of an egg, right? It's that simple.
That's true.
You're interested in marketing, so you have those references, you have those ideas, you have that knowledge with you. Now I have that information into 12 because I have 12 superstars working with me. But yeah, largely give the client, and this is something that I learned early on, give the client something that they've not thought of or they don't have exposure to. That's what they're coming to agencies for.
True that. Help me understand. I've just kind of maybe broaden this and pick that one assumption that kept you going in the long run or going with Anagram, and one assumption that you just abandoned because that's not going to work.
Interesting. I think one that kept me going was actually how my journey started. There's an opportunity in everything.
True.
Right? Here I am one day sitting jobless at home, not knowing where the next rental is going to come from, barely any money in the bank. That was a time during the corona wave that a lot of people felt so helpless, and you felt that the world is going to come to an end. And
True
a lot
that.
of us felt that, I'm never going to go back to work. Life is never going to be the same again. I may never have the same kind of money in my bank again. But the real success is not in building something out of it eventually. That comes at a later stage. But it's about finding that opportunity. It's about not giving up and finding an opportunity in everything and starting with the first baby step. So can I probably take my first 2 projects in the field of social media? And I'm going to think of the rest later. On day 1 of Anagram, I did not have a well chalked out marketing or a business plan for the next 2 years that I can take to an investor. Honestly, I still don't. But why don't we just think of the next 6 months or the next 9 months, the next 2 to 3 quarters, and what kind of projects do I want to work with? I think the first question to address is, what do you enjoy doing? And can I just do more of that in times like this? So finding the opportunity, I think, is gold, is the most important thing that kept us going. It's not like in the last 4 years, Anagram's not been through its ups and downs. But every time there's a down, what is the opportunity that you're looking for? What is it that you enjoy doing? Go back to your primary reason of starting that business or starting whatever journey you're on. And just, you'll find your answers there.
Lovely. If I may ask, did you even make a business plan while you started? You never did?
No, there still is no business plan.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds very counterintuitive to most businesses. It may sound fatal. There are plans for other things. Yes, there are plans for what kind of clients do we want to work with. We're a creative agency. Of course, we make business plans for things other than. Let me put it this way. There is no conventional business plan on an Excel sheet which says 6 months mein ye, 1 saal mein ye, 2 saal mein ye, 5 saal mein yahan. Those plans I don't believe in. The plans that I believe in is, yes, What kind of financial planning do we need to do to see that this financial year gets us to a certain target revenue? What kind of resources do we need for that? What kind of manpower do I need to have in place? What kind of an office setup do I need? Who do I need to reach out to get that kind of clientele? Those plans we have in place, yes, but on day one, I had no plans. I just wanted to do things that I enjoy. I wanted to do work that I'm good at and be able to find more and more people who can join hands with me and be able to build Anagram to do good work.
Okay, let me go back to that story where we discussed that you had some clients who eventually got hosted on Shark Tank.
Yes.
Tell me more about that. Where did they come from? How they actually ended up Shark Tank? And then what was the post Shark Tank journey for you as an agency and for them, if that's possible for us?
Yeah, very interesting month actually. It was a roller coaster of a month. We had 3 clients featuring on Shark Tank in the same week.
3?
So yeah,
Wow.
and it was, call it a coincidence, call it luck, but there were 3 clients on Shark Tank in the same week, and I can't even begin to explain what that does to you. For one of our clients, we were making their website. For the other one, we were handling sales, and with the third one, we were handling marketing overall. So the website has to go live. This is one of them. We had to take the website live hours before the Shark Tank episode has to go live. And so the Shark Tank airs it airs at 9 o'clock in the evening. And around 2 o'clock, we are done with everything. But the most interesting story was this one client called Jhatu that was featuring on Shark Tank the same week. We were making the website. The Shark Tank episode goes live at 9 o'clock. And at 2 o'clock, I'm done with everything. All checks done. Website is live. We're expecting massive sales to explode on their website. So we had to make sure server doesn't go down. Everything is fine. The backend is enabled. Product is in stock. Inventory is in place. Everything is done. Now, suddenly there's an internal discussion in the company which says that we now want to change the pin codes we're delivering to. This is at 2 o'clock.
My goodness.
Shark Tank goes live at 9. So starting 2 o'clock till 8:50, I still remember. My team was actually changing the pin codes, and that pin code change was actually a slightly technical process. I won't go into the details, but it took us some 7-8 hours to finish all of that. And at 8:50, we called up the client and said, all done. And 9 o'clock, they aired. Touchwood, luckily, everything went very smoothly. They did massive orders that night and for a few weeks after that. For the other clients also, for instance, the Healthy Bench, which is a chips company, huge shout out to them actually, one of our clients for the last 2 years, one of our most consistent clients. And we manage all things marketing for them. So they don't have an in-house marketing team. We're almost like an outsourced marketing team to them. Social media, website, all shoots, Zomato, all your third-party marketplace listings, everything's being done by us. So their journey was very interesting because we used to also handle sales for them. So not to just make sure that your sales stay up for a week or two, which is what Shark Tank does to you organically. It's like a booster dose that you get for 2 to 3 weeks. But to also be able to consistently give them that kind of result for the next 3-4 months at least, if not more. It's been 2 years. We still continue to thrive and get them more sales every month. And yeah, Shark Tank was an interesting journey. What kept us through it, to answer your question? Adrenaline. I mean, that week was the most adrenaline-packed week for us. And we were a very small agency back then. I had 6 people in the team. Those 6 people were constantly, the only thing I think that kept us going was just a lot of energy, adrenaline. I was working with the right people. I still am. Some of them are still a part of the team. And just this never say die attitude. A client has said, change the pin code, so change the pin code. There is no questions asked, right? And make it happen. So that's the only trait that I look for in people. And if we have that, we'll sail through it.
Lovely, lovely. Yeah. There was one more interesting ad campaign you did. There was a story, Zlade Ballistic.
Ballistic, yes.
I mean, that was the cheekiest ad I could see. And when I saw your name, your brand's name there, I was really curious to know the story behind it. How did that happen? And what was the actual learning that you got? Because I believe you didn't do the full package of the package.
You know, that's never the case. So there'll always be a creative agency, there'll be a production house, there'll be a celeb management agency. So we were the creative agency in that entire process. So for the interest of your viewers, this is a campaign that a brand called Ballistic did with Milind Soman. Ballistic is a men's intimate hygiene brand. And they as the name suggests, there's a reason why it's called ballistic. They wanted to be as cheeky and as humorous as possible. They came to us and they said, Neha, we need to grab attention one way or another. And next thing we know, we're managing their social media. They said, Neha, we've got Milind Soman. Initially, I thought they're kidding because it would have been the most perfect combination. We had suggested this name long back, and then they finally went and closed a deal with him. He's going to be the brand ambassador for the next 1 year. They said, we want you to write campaign films. I'll tell you very interestingly. The original campaign line was, don't be a jhatu.
Oh, lovely.
And obviously, for obvious reasons, we couldn't go ahead with it. The celebrity loved it. The client loved it. We were all married to that line for 6 months. I think for good 4 to 6 months, there was contemplation on how to make it work. My initial idea was, can I put Milind Soman on a billboard in Bombay? Suddenly people wake up in the morning and there's a picture of Milind Soman holding a trimmer, pointing it downwards and saying, don't be a jhatu. That's all. And a logo of ballistic. But for obvious reasons, legal teams and marketing teams are usually on loggerheads, and they won. So we didn't go ahead with that. But our revised campaign was called No Nicks, No Cuts, Unless You Like It Like That. Which was cheeky enough. So the campaigns went viral. We did 2 films for them. The first one had touched 1 million views within 24 hours of going live.
Wow.
The other one did 4 million views in 48 hours of going live. And the client did consistent revenues for months after the campaign went live. They renewed his contract. So I think all in all, a super successful campaign. One learning that I drew from this entire journey, and this actually is something that came from Milind Soman in one of our meetings. He said, Neha, whenever there's a controversy, you be on the right side of that. Create a controversy, do that, because that sells. But you be on the right side of the controversy. What that means is, so I would never write a bold campaign which may offend religion, which may show a certain gender bias, or any other topic that I as a consumer might find sensitive. Right? Or anybody for that matter.
True.
When a campaign goes live, it gets viewed by people from different walks of life, from different religions, from different domains, from different lifestyles. If you feel that you're on the wrong side of it, that is not the controversy you want to create. But if it's something that touches on subjectivity, and if it's something that intrigues, and that, which is why there's a controversy that gets created, then that is something that you should, as marketers, take full advantage of. This was my biggest learning. Luckily, the campaign didn't create a lot of controversy. We got accolades from different marketing critiques across the board. A lot of marketing veterans wrote about the campaign on LinkedIn. Great comments. We got a lot of business. So I think, that's the campaign that put us in business.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How you generally get business? Is it just through referrals? You go out in the market, you talk to clients, or just out with anyone, anywhere? How does actually that happens?
It's a mix of a lot of things. I had been in the industry for about 13, 14 years before starting the agency.
True.
That is not the case with a lot of agency founders. A lot of them start younger. So that gave us an upside. I already had a lot of network. I'd worked very hard on making the right contacts through my now 17 years. And making sure that I stay in touch with people, my ex-bosses, people that I had been associated with at some point in time. So that really helps. So a lot of our initial business, to answer your question, came from my contacts in my earlier companies.
Okay, help me understand the journey, the first 100-day journey that you had while coming as a solo entrepreneur to forming a team of 12 members. How did that first recruit happen?
So the first few recruits are very important in any business.
True that.
There are 2-3 parts to it. One is the culture. So very early on, I was very aware of the fact that in a service-based business, your culture is going to be everything. Up until the time I was the only person in Anagram, the culture was me, right? How I think about certain situations, how I am, is the culture. So I made a very conscious list of my traits that would define Anagram's culture. Then I started looking for people who match that vibe. People who don't mind rolling up the sleeves, sitting on the floor and working on a shoot. People who have a hustler mentality. People who wouldn't mind working on smaller campaigns. That was one part of it. The other part is, as I progressed through different jobs in my career, I also realized another trait in people. You would usually find people fit into one of the following two. One is people who are happier being a small cog in a large wheel, and the other kind of people who want to be a larger cog in a small wheel. What that means is the former are people who want to be in a larger company. ये मेरा काम है, मैं 9 बजे जाऊँगा, 5 बजे आऊँगा. I'm only taking care of this. I don't care what's happening in something else. And I'm very good at what I do, which is not to say that they're not good, but they're very good at this.
Yes.
Then there are the other kind of people who say, I'm not satisfied with that. This doesn't do enough for me. I want to do more. I want to do bigger things. I am a marketer, but I also want to see finance में क्या चल रहा है, because अगर उसका impact मेरे business पे आ रहा है, so I also want to fix that. I also want to see what the human resource team is doing and what kind of people are they getting, because I'm going to be working with these people. So those are the latter set of people. For an early stage business, those people fit more. These are the hustlers. These are the people who don't mind burning the midnight oil to get the work done. So the second thing for me was, apart from culture, we needed people who come from that mindset. And the third thing was, I did not want to hire people from very large organizations. Again, which fits into my second point to a large degree. Somebody who's been exposed to, let's say, multi-crore campaigns at a Nestle would suddenly come here and feel very starved for the bigger meat. So we very consciously got people from smaller organizations, people who had marketing experience, yes, or design experience, yes, but from smaller setups. That kept them hungry. That kept them very happy when we got thoda sa bada client or that thoda sa extra project. And that kept them going. The fuel of creative energies was just enough to keep these people going. And I still work with those kind of people. Some of those people who joined us on day one are still with us. And I've been blessed to find some really good team members who go the extra mile to make sure that the client brief is getting met to the T.
Okay, help me understand two things. One, when most of the startups generally start, they're not very abundant with money. They're mostly cash-starved.
Yeah.
How did you manage to stick these people, the creative minds, with you when money was not the challenge for them, or money was not the part of attraction for them?
So for creative people, Sachin, I don't think compensation is a necessary fuel or a primary fuel as such. Obviously, all of us need to be compensated well for what we do, and we at Anagram make sure that people are getting market level pay. However, I don't think that's the primary fuel for creative people. What they need is for their creative juices to keep flowing. They need to make sure that you as an organization need to make sure that they have enough and more variety of work that keeps them satisfied. They're getting bigger avenues. They're getting interesting work. There are 3 or 4 ways in which we do it. One, no project is only one person's. Whenever we get a campaign which is even slightly bigger than the rest of the BAU work that we do, we would huddle as a group of 12. All of us come together, we sit in a room, and there's no senior or junior in that session. We would usually have interns to senior creative heads, all of them putting their brains together and coming up with an interesting idea, or sometimes coming up with 12 interesting ideas. What that does is, even a performance marketing person who's usually looking at numbers throughout the day, he gets an opportunity to work on a creative campaign. This keeps everybody almost entertained. It's almost like a 1-hour fun session. And for the people who are working on that project, they now have 12 times the ideas. So that really helps. The other thing that we do is something that we've recently started, actually about a year ago. It's called Friday Learning Sessions. So every Friday morning, 10 to 11, we have a session where one member of the team would volunteer to teach the rest of the group something that they've learned.
That's interesting.
I encourage that this is around AI mostly, because that's the way to go. However, anything that you've learned, whether it's about how to do a shoot, how to run performance campaigns, how to think of the next campaign, if there's a playbook, anything. These sessions have really helped. It one informally puts us in a room for something other than just regular work. We're all learning something new. We also get a chance to present our core skill sets to the rest of the group and our colleagues. Sometimes you don't get to do that over the whole year.
True.
It also, in a way, sharpens our presentation skills.
Of course, it does.
And these sessions are usually followed by a breakfast in office. And that also gives us an informal chance to just gossip and bond over things. But yeah, largely, Sachin, I think for creative people, what you need to do is give them enough and more avenues to vent out their that pent up creativity. And the more avenues you can build, formally or informally, the better it is for the team. That's something that I constantly strive to do, and I hope I'm successful in it. I mean, it seems it. It seems it's
It
working.
definitely is,
Yeah.
as far as I know. A little a follow up on that question is you keep mentoring a lot of students and young entrepreneurs
Sometimes,
and
yes.
young, fresh minds. What are the key skills that you feel that are still lacking both in their attitude as well as in their portfolios?
AI. I think hands down, AI is completely taken over our world. And even today, when I interview freshers or I meet kids who are fresh out of college, um, I see AI skills missing. And it's very worrisome because the world is changing. I saw the Shopify CEO's email. I mean, you must have read it in the news. There was an email leak where he was emphasizing the importance of AI, and he was almost borderline nudging his team to get into AI or justify why you are not using AI to expedite your work or to make your efficiencies higher. uh, it's across the board. You can't escape it. And in fact,
True.
why should you escape it? You should use it as a team member almost. You should use it as a strength to make better processes, to make yourselves more efficient. But when I meet freshers, I see that uh, their interaction with AI is limited to probably making one of their articles using ChatGPT, but that's not enough, and that's not going to help in the long run for these
True. That's too basic.
students. And that's not what the industry is looking for. We're all constantly striving to hire people who are more and more AI forward, and they know more and more tools. One night you go to bed, the next morning there's more advancements on AI.
Absolutely.
So it's so important. And at that age, while you're still plastic, it's so easy to learn. So I see that missing, and I really hope that's changing. I think our academicians need to do a lot more in terms of teaching the students the right AI skills for them to be able to become faster, more efficient professionals in the future.
Lovely. A very interesting yet intriguing question is, as a women entrepreneur, I'm sure you must have had your way of dealing with the challenges. What were the two challenges, or maybe one challenge that you faced, never anticipated, and it still exists?
Um, this is very interesting, and it's going to sound a little philosophical, maybe. I don't think the challenges were external. Luckily, in the marketing space and in the agency space, anyway, women are more accepted. I mean, the nature of the business is such that it's not a male dominated business like there are some others. However, having said that, even if there is a little bias, I honestly never came across anything like that. The challenges that I faced were mostly internal. I think we as women tend to question ourselves a bit much. We've been hardwired to be overly critical of ourselves. So initially, I used to find myself constantly being either low on confidence, like as if I don't belong here, whatever I'm doing, or uh, questioning my criteria for decision making. So, for example, I'm a very emotional person, and I used to constantly question, why am I being emotional? I mean, I used to constantly question my emotional side, uh, or my overly optimistic side. Um I very early on identified it, thankfully, and I decided to overcome it. I mean, it took some work on myself, but I had to tell myself that, you know, let's not use emotions as a weakness. Let's make it our strength. Let's not being overly optimistic. Let's not consider it being a setback. Let it be an opportunity. So over the years, for example, being emotional has helped because we've been able to make better relations with clients, with vendors, with service providers, with our team members. We've gone out of the way sometimes to help. We've received that back, from the universe, from people. Um, so yeah, as a woman, I think the challenges I faced were mostly internal, and I still do. All of us still do, but uh, those are the challenges that need to be overcome. I'm, I'm guessing I've overcome some of them, and there's a long way to go for all of us.
Okay, help me understand your journey from the 2 lakh seed capital to building a 2 crore agency. How did that span out? One. And what are the principles, the profit first principles that you still kept to the organization?
Uh, well, the journey has been taxing. What more can I say? Um, the journey has been beautiful, has been taxing, has been a journey of learning and unlearning all at the same time. I think there's just so much that goes into entrepreneurship. I used to read articles about it. I had had first-hand experience with while running my dad's business with him a couple of years ago, but then I was still the number two. Uh, Running a self-funded, bootstrapped business right from day one, looking at profitability, making sure that you are the creative head, you're also taking care of accounts, you're also making sure that you're handling human resource, you're the only founder. There are a lot of things that go into building a right business. And one thing that I realized in the process was that कोई एक भी गलत नहीं हो सकता है. It's not like, hey, I'm great at accounts, human resource, and marketing, but I don't know what's happening with my taxation. Somebody can take care of that. You can't do that. You don't have a choice. It's not an option. So you have to very quickly learn every part of running a business, which only comes from practice, which only comes from actually doing it. So that's been a very overwhelming journey. I think we're somewhere there. There are a few things that we still need to learn, but that's how the journey has been. As far as profitability is concerned, yes, we decided to keep Anagram a self-funded, bootstrapped business right from day one. We intend to be like that for a couple of more years. And I think running a business that way is, there are pros and cons to it. The biggest advantage of doing it is that you have full control. You will be able to focus on quality. You will be able to on getting the right team members, on getting the right products in place, the right services in place. You get enough time to be able to do that. The biggest disadvantage is that in today's world, you get compared to funded startups who work at a very different pace. They operate in a way that they can go to 0 to 1 within, say, 3 months sometimes. So sometimes you're compared with those startups, and you yourself end up comparing them yourself with the pace of those startups, and that can be a little demotivating sometimes. But you have to constantly tell yourself that your choice was different, your pace is different, you are going to be on a very different journey from what most other businesses are on. You're profitable from day one. At least we were. In a service business, if you play your cards well, you will be profitable from day one. We have been. So keep reminding yourselves of those plus points, and not look at maybe any other business for comparison, and that'll keep you going.
Lovely. I'm a little curious about one part is I've observed that many women entrepreneurs always would have one or the other co-founder as a male member to kind of handle the rough stuff.
Yeah.
One question is, why didn't you think about it if you didn't? And second is, because I have observed another aspect is that a creative mind is very hard to work on the logical side of the business.
Yeah.
So how did you manage that piece?
I'll answer that first. I've always considered myself a mixed breed of sorts when it comes to creativity. In my graduation, I studied BCom. I was a BCom honors student. From there on, I went on to study fashion marketing in my post-graduation, which was a more creative project, a more creative field of learning. All the jobs that I've had have largely been inclined towards being at the cusp of these two things. And actually, that was also the idea behind starting Anagram at some point. There are either marketing professionals can easily be divided into two parts, and agencies can also be divided into two parts. One are agencies that are more creative, the traditional agencies that are thinking of story, ad campaign. These are the agencies that win awards. And then there are very ROI driven agencies, the performance agencies as we call them, who are only thinking of numbers. Thanks to my roles in the last few organizations, I was always in the middle. It gave me enough sense of both the numbers side of business and the creative side. Working with my dad on a business obviously helped massively. There is so much that I learned about running a business. The creativity was in me. I am generally a creative person. So that didn't have to get built. Obviously, it gets sharpened over a period of time, but that's how I am. But the number skills got acquired thanks to these 3 or 4 or 5 different experiences. So it gave me a sort of it gave me a best of both worlds situation. when I was taking up these jobs, I always used to think, yeah, dono karne padenge. But I think little did I know at that time that it's going to help in such a beautiful way setting up a creative agency. To answer your question about a co-founder,
Yes.
it's not like I didn't think about it. But at a very early stage, I made a list of reasons why I would need a co founder, right? One of them is bandwidth. Mostly, when people would get a co founder, would be for one of the two reasons. It could either be bandwidth, or it could be a certain set of skills that you think are missing in you and they get complemented through a different person who has those skills. I'll address bandwidth first. Uh, I don't think for me bandwidth was a problem large enough to have been solved through a co-founder. I felt that I could always hire more people for that, which I did. Luckily, I'd spent enough time in the industry. I had also worked very hard to build the right relations and the network to make sure that if I needed legal help or accounts or something, there were always people who I could trust just a phone call away, or 1 degree separated from me on LinkedIn for that matter. So those things always came in easy. So for bandwidth, I never felt that I needed anyone. And in a service-based business, honestly, I don't think skills are also, for example, if you're selling a product or you're selling a commodity which is very technical, then you need somebody to come in as a co-founder who brings in that technical knowledge. Uh, in our business, it's relatively easier to find all of those skills in one person. I felt there wasn't something that was lacking enough for us on day one to bring in a co-founder. Wherever we felt we found the right team members for it. Eventually, say 2 years later, 3 years later, if we feel that we need a co-founder. Now, for example, with AI coming in, if at some point I feel that I personally am not being able to advance myself to a point where tech comes in easy to us, is when I'd probably consider bringing in a co-founder. But abhi tak, we've not felt the need to have, have someone to kind of come and fill in some gaps, because I don't see a very big one as of now.
Since we have talked much about AI and quite predominantly it's changing the entire landscape of jobs, careers altogether, help me understand what is your playbook of AI, that to the skills that you look for, or the kind of tools that you use in Anagram.
We use a lot of tools. I think I watched a podcast recently which said there are two ways that you can think of using AI in your business. One is use it as a tool, in which case you're trying a tool out. You say, okay, this works, this doesn't work for me, and then you reject or accept it. The other is you have to use AI as a team member. So if it doesn't work, you make it learn. You make it learn a little more, and at some point you would be able to interact with your AI tool enough for it to become efficient enough to be used in your business. So we've at Anagram as a team changed our orientation to almost have AI for each member of our team, almost like a separate team member, which has greatly helped us increase our efficiencies in every part of our work. I don't think any business, especially in the service industry, is separated from AI today. So whether it's content writing or design creation or photo shoots or replacing video shoots or creating websites, every person in my team has been given full liberty to work with whatever AI tools that they think necessary for their business, if it brings in efficiencies, if it cuts down cost, if it reduces the man hours. All of those doors are open for the team members to explore. We very, very openly encourage the team to use as many AI tools as possible. We are investing heavily into that tech. We also, like I mentioned, we have these Friday learning sessions every week where I encourage the team to ideally teach a new AI tool to the rest of the team. So let's say, for example, somebody's been able to replace photo shoots to a large degree for a certain client,
Okay.
Which is something that we did recently, in fact. Can I teach that to the rest of the group? Can I get the rest of the design team to at least become updated with that? Can I bring the cost down? Can I pass on that profit to the client? Those are things that are constant upgrades that one business needs to take, especially in the service business. And we're constantly trying to make sure we get better every morning.
But are there any specific tools that you would vouch for?
Lots, actually, lots. There is no particular tool that I would say solves the entire problem, at least in our space. But there are lots. There's Gamma, there's ChatGPT, too, of course. There's Sora, there's Pika. FreePix come up with some AI tools now. Hundreds of tools. Yeah.
So you keep experimenting with them and
Yes.
figure out which one works for your
absolutely.
workflow, right?
Absolutely, every day.
So help me understand a couple of things more about your philosophy of using AI, and then you said passing on that profit to the clients. Do you charge them differently if you're using certain AI tools, or
Yes.
you keep it straight?
Yes, no, wherever possible, we charge differently, which is basically charge less. But that's also because we are spending lesser time to turn out that output now.
Lovely.
So in different ways, we are trying to, and obviously it's very new. So it's only been 6 months where efficiently AI is being used across the board. Before that, there was a lot of trial and error that was happening, not just for us, but in the industry. But in the last 6 months, we started seeing that concrete work can be done with commitments. And now we've already in some cases, but hopefully in the next 1 quarter, we'll start passing on that profit to clients in as many ways as possible. That's how we also thrive, right? It's not something that, it's not a favor on our clients. It's just keeping ourselves as relevant to the times as possible.
Lovely. So all the agencies that would be watching the video, are there any specific steps or key matrices or any suggestions that you would give pertinent to AI, how they should be using AI, or how they should be using AI in their workflows, maybe as a team member or just as a tool?
My advice to other agencies, actually not just agencies, to any business or any professional out there, would be to not see AI as a threat. I know commonly agencies would say, oh, it's taking away jobs, or even people at a younger level would say, okay, content is now easier, design is now easier. But that sentence in itself shows threat. You can't be threatened by a new technology. You have to feel that it's an enabler. You constantly have to believe and tell yourself that it's an enabler. And can I do my job better? Can I do my job faster? Can I do it 100 times more efficiently than I used to till a few months ago? And that is the only way in which you'll be able to learn. AI is not something that can be learned in 8 hours of your work life. It is something that has to be a constant process. You are either curious about it or you're not.
Of course.
I mean, if there have been times when I've tried to teach it to somebody, I mean, I'm no expert, but when I've tried to encourage somebody in my office to learn, and they would just come to office, try doing something and leave. And those are not the people who excel in learning a new tool. Can I, for example, plan my next holiday on ChatGPT? I actually did that. I'm traveling in June. I gave a prompt to ChatGPT, described my preferences, and I got a full-fledged itinerary tailor-made to the last T with hotel suggestions and every travel tip that I need for this vacation.
Lovely.
Can I make my diet plans on ChatGPT or any of these tools? There's a combination of ChatGPT and Cursor that's being used today by some of my team members to do better projects on strategy. So there's so much potential that you have to start using it in every part of your life to be able to do better. And if you think of it as a threat कि अब हम 4 चीज़ें सीख लेते हैं तो अगला shoot better हो जाएगा, that is not the approach that one needs to take.
So that brings us to the last segment of our session, which is the rapid fire round.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to think about the answers. Whatever answer comes to your mind, straight away answer that.
I'll try.
Ready for that?
Yeah.
Lovely. First metric you open every morning.
The number of WhatsApp messages that are unread on my phone. I think that's where the real fire drill begins.
Lovely. One bootstrapping habit you will never drop.
Recycling marketing ideas that got rejected and never got used. I don't like to waste my ideas.
A book or a podcast that helped you shape your founder's philosophy.
There was a book that my husband gifted me actually last year. It doesn't have to be crazy at work. This was written by the founders of Basecamp about how chaos does not have to necessarily be a virtue at work. And yeah, that book really changed the way I look at culture in office.
Lovely. Hardest part of running a agency solo?
Oh, hands down. It's being the creative head, an accounts manager, and vibe manager, and human resource, all in the same hour, sometimes even before I pick up my morning coffee in the day.
Lovely. Last but not the least, finish this thought. Creativity without data is?
It's like getting an award for your campaign and also being fired by the client on the same day.
Lovely, lovely. That was amazing. And I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank
Would
you,
love
Sachin.
to have you again
Thank you, Sachin. I love
to understand more about your journey as an entrepreneur, about your mentorship sessions that you talked about briefly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a great time on the show, and thank you for having me over.
Thank you. Thank you for watching the episode till the end. I hope it added value. Please like, share, and subscribe. And do let me know in the comments below if you want me to cover a specific career of your choice.